this list came out, and I had Jared Bell ask me a question about some of these candidates that are now the modern day. And of course, as you know, before I bring Jason Cole on here, Jared Bell goes, "What do you make of some of these guys?" And I'm going to ask Jason the same thing here. And not all these guys. I'm not going to ask them all, but what he looks at with a guy. And by the way, he has to do a ton more research into this. And then it comes down to listening to the presenter, all of that. And they have to sit in a room. This is a tedious process, especially when you see names that are just like, there's like 150 deep or 173 names or something like that, that it's that deep there. And what a task. And by the way, you know what's really sucky? This must really suck for Jason at times, because you know why? If you're some of these players, you take it as an insult that Jason doesn't pick you for the final 20 some odd or down to the last guys, because you're insulting someone's career. It's not really insulting. It's putting it in proper perspective compared to what we're talking about with the guys with the gold jackets. T.O. took it that way. It's not an insult, dude. Okay? They took everything, and you were such an asshole that they added an extra column for you. Lawrence Taylor had drug issues, and they overcame that, put him in on the first ballot because of that. You were an asshole, so they added a column, and they're going to add columns on you. Or some are. Not everybody's going to, like the guy in Chicago, or Kosh, he's not going to vote the same way Jason Cole or Jared Bell or anybody else, Rick Gosselin. Those guys vote. So let's bring my friend in. I want to go over some of these names here. Would you make the deal, Jace? Came out.
I'm sorry, you're in and out a little bit here, Dan. I'm not hearing you real well. Go ahead.
How are we now?
We're great. We're great. Great. This is perfect. Okay.
Okay, great. Jace, what's your initial thought on the 173 names that came out that you guys have to decipher through?
Well, we're down to 25 now.
Okay, so you're down to 25.
We're down to 25 now. So 173, we've got down to a good group that was announced this week. It's guys like Eric Allen's on there, Jared Allen, Willie Anderson, Tiki Barber. I'm not going to go over all of them. It's a really solid list. I think there are a few guys here who will be, I don't want to say easy to trim because all these guys are quality players, but some guys who you just go, they don't measure up to the top 15. Now, I see it as 6 or 7 guys who are kind of easier to knock off this group, and then it ends up with about 18 guys who you go, ooh, this is tough. But if you're talking about who's the top on here, I see some guys who, in my opinion, are going to be, pretty good candidates here. Patrick Willis, up there, Julius Peppers and Andre Johnson.
Antonio Gates,
yeah, he's pretty good. I don't know if it's absolutely top 5. It's going to be a little bit tough, but guys like that. And we come back to Eric Allen. You've asked about Eric Allen before.
Yeah, Eric Allen. What do you make of him?
Look, the career achievements are all there. I mean, he checks all the boxes except for the playoff success one, which is not, again, that's not number 1 for me. I never come into this saying, well, you didn't win in the playoffs and therefore you're disqualified. Okay. What I say is, okay, you have these kind of career achievements individually. They make you a qualified player. The additional things that differentiate you from somebody else is winning part of it. Like, do you have that? But with Dan Marino, you would never hold the fact that the Dolphins didn't win the Super Bowls with Dan against Dan Marino.
But he's 7-9 in the post. No, I wouldn't. But
right, yeah,
he's 7-9 in the postseason.
Who
Marino?
Yeah, I mean, look, it wasn't great in the postseason, but if you watch the man play, you just go, "That's what a Hall of Famer is." Eric Allen, you go, "That's a really great player." Is it Hall of Fame worthy? It's close. but he has all the requisite numbers that measure up with a ton of different Hall of Fame guys. So I think he's going to make the top 15. And then it's a matter of how does it shake down among those top five.
It,
Sometimes you get in that room and you feel like there's some momentum that starts to go for one or two guys. It doesn't happen every year. It doesn't happen all the time. It doesn't happen with more than one or two guys, but every once in a while there is momentum that builds for a particular player. And Brian Dawkins was a great example of that. All of a sudden, one year, like he was on the final 15 a couple of times. And then all of a sudden it was like, no, this is the guy. Like among the safeties that we were arguing about, people were like, this is the guy. And that
Brian
was the
Dawkins
feeling you
wasn't a
got.
first ballot?
I don't think no, he wasn't a first ballot Hall of Famer. He got in early in this process, but I don't think Brian's not a first ballot Hall of Fame guy. Not in my memory. Not in my
So
memory.
does it really come down to because once you pare it down, Jace, and you get down to that 15, it comes to who's in the bunch, right? I mean, as you could have guys that are like so close to Eric and someone else, like what is his name? What's the guy's name in Kansas City? Albert Lewis.
Yeah,
Somebody like, I know he's not on this list here, but what I'm saying is somebody like Albert Lewis is a great player. He was a really good player in Kansas City. But does it come down to stuff like that? I mean, it's just like sometimes you look at it and you go, well, both. I mean, you can't put one or the other in. So we're going to go over here and put that guy in.
Look, there's no formula. Okay, everybody's like, "Oh, what does this happen?" It depends on okay, it depends on the group. And a lot of people are like, "Okay, we're sort of wide receivers." Well, yeah, we've had classes where more than one wide receiver goes in. It's not like we only pick one. There have been classes where there are four offensive linemen out of the five guys. I think if you look up the year that Marcus Allen went in, it was Marcus Allen as a first ballot guy. And then it wasn't a particularly great group of guys among the rest of the 15. I think there was four offensive linemen with that guy. Joe DeLamielleure as well. Yeah, like it was a lot. It was a lot of guys. And it just happens that way sometimes. And then sometimes you get a year where there was three first ballot guys. The year Calvin Johnson, Peyton Manning, and Charles Woodson got in. And all of a sudden there's three first ballot guys. And you basically have this really tough argument among the 12 remaining guys for two spots. Like that's how it comes down. Now we're not saying that, we're not just going, oh, first ballot guy, but you kind of know, if you do your homework, and to me, out of that group, Calvin Johnson wasn't the slam dunk. It was Woodson and Manning were the slam dunk ones. And I was like, okay, is Calvin Johnson really a first ballot guy? And I'm like, I think he is. He just doesn't happen to measure up with Peyton Manning and Charles Woodson. Like they're first ballot guys where, you don't even say anything with.
Well, in the last
certainly
20 years, Calvin Johnson's in the top 4 or 5 players ever play that position.
He is. And, so then you go, yeah, he belongs. He just didn't have the same career that Peyton Manning and Charles Woodson had. It's like you just go, yeah, he's not them, but he's still a first ballot Hall of Fame guy.
Absolutely. Jace, when you look at a guy like Eddie George, is Eddie George somebody that you look at with his type of career, especially those great battles he had with Ray Lewis, that you look at what those rivalries meant and how you look at how those Titans and Raven teams played and what it meant to the league? Because that was a dynamic rivalry between those two guys.
That's part of it. That's part of fame. It's part of, like two guys laying it out on the line. The way that Eddie George played running back the classic way that guys are supposed to play a running back, right? And he's such a good dude too, right? Like
I love him.
Yeah, I mean, he's a really wonderful guy. And you go, that's a tough ass running back. Like I'm giving that guy the ball, in a third and 1, third and 2 situation. Go get me yards I need, right? Or 4th and 1. I'm putting the ball in Eddie George's hands, right? And he's not quite as big as Derrick Henry, but he's built along those lines,
he's
right?
like that though.
I mean, and yes, the battles.
And he ran like him.
He did. And the battles between Tennessee and Baltimore are epic, just absolutely epic, because those were those were snot knocker teams, right? Like we are gonna. It's a battle between which one of the two of us is gonna knock the crap out of you first. And those were classic fun games. I still remember being at that playoff game, where Ray took the ball from Eddie as one of the 3 or 4 biggest plays in that game that vaults Baltimore into winning the Super Bowl that
Absolutely. Do you think Donovan McNabb is a Hall of Fame candidate down the line? Um, do you believe or is he in the Hall of Very Good?
year. Hall very good, and it's a shame because I think for a long time I
What
thought
didn't he do? What didn't he do for you not to have him in Canton?
he didn't finish great. He didn't finish, like his career just petered out in a
Faded.
hurry. He faded really fast. Too. Like he has I'd have to look at the stats really much more carefully, but he has a really solid 9, 10, maybe 11 years in there.
And he
And
traded
then
him in the division too, like the
right,
Washington.
they were completely and totally unafraid to trade him within the division, which tells you a lot. But all of a sudden he just hit a wall. And the stats are terrific, but they're not as terrific as say, some of the other guys who are there. I mean, it's a shame because I think Donovan had a lot of time in his career where he was better than a lot of guys who ended up in the Hall of Fame. But the sum total of what he was comes up short to me. It's like
You
a
think he's better than
70.
Ken Anderson?
Yeah, oh, he's way better than Kenny Anderson. I mean,
I do too.
But Kenny Anderson, Kenny's not in the Hall of Fame.
Fine ball player, no disrespect too. I
No,
mean,
no
Ken's a good
disrespect
player.
to Kenny Anderson. Look, Kenny Anderson was a guy who, lived on, he lived on Bill Walsh's system, which was early on, and get the ball out of your hands really fast. Don't screw around, which you had to do because you're
In
playing the
fourth
Steelers.
grade, carried it over.
Yeah, I mean, you got to play that way because you're in the division with the Steelers, and the Steelers are gonna,
Yep.
break your jaw every play. If you hold on to the ball, you're gonna die, right? Like that's the kind of teams he was playing against. So the ball's got to get out in order for you to run a functional offense. But just because you're like the most accurate passer of the 1970s, and getting the ball out of your hands doesn't make you a great player. Like that doesn't distinguish itself in my view. It just means you had some really nice stats that went with it.
I'm going to get into a comment that I want. I want to get your opinion because you have voted on the MVP, and I want to ask you something here. So today, before we get into the NFL news, today, Dak Prescott was named the NFC offensive or the NFC Offensive Player of the Month, and I said this: how do you not give this to Jalen Hurts, who in the month of November beat Dak, he beat Mahomes, and he beat Allen. And he beat Allen and Mahomes in a 7-day stretch.
When did he beat Dak straight up? Was that in October?
This when right before the bye.
Yeah, but he did this past month, right?
Yeah.
So he beat the
Did it,
guys.
he did it in November.
He beat him
They
head
gave
to head.
Dak more credit for playing well in a loss than Jalen beating him. And get this, Jason, knocking the pelts down. Look at who you beat. I don't care what the stats are. He had 5 touchdowns in the Buffalo game. Look at who he beat. Jace, what's the metric on how you look at the most valuable player? I say there's no way he wins it when you're giving somebody like Dak, who beat New York, Carolina, Washington, and you're trying to convince me that Dak beating him beat the NFC Player of the Month. You beat the Super Bowl MVP.
Just stop. It's not. Look, it's a ridiculous award. That it's sort of like when I learned today that Deion Sanders was named Sportsman of the Year by Sports Illustrated, right? Yeah, that was a great story. He's not Sportsman of the Year. Okay,
4-8.
right? He was Sportsman of the Year. is an interesting guy, interesting story, not Sportsman of the Year. Sports Illustrated named him Sportsman of the Year. So along those lines, making Dak Prescott the player of the month in the NFL or whatever the stupid award was, right? Over what you've seen from Jalen Hurts this past month, who to me, and again, I try to not get into this argument of who's the MVP halfway through the season or 3 quarters. But if you're asking me, you're putting a gun to my head like who's the MVP, it's Jalen Hurts right now because they're 10-1 and he's doing some amazing things. And yeah, that's over. I've been pushing AJ Brown a lot, okay, because I thought he was so good in the first half of the season. Now he's tailed off a little bit, okay. He's still really good. But to me, like Jalen Hurts is the guy, like he's the reason offensively that they get, that they wake up and they're consistent. Like the way he's running that team. Is he a spectacular player? Not necessarily, but he's a lunch pail guy with a lot of talent, and they're winning tough games right now. And they, again, they may or may not win a Super Bowl, but if you talk about the most consistent team in the NFL and the team that in the past 5 games, right? Because they've beaten Miami,
Dallas,
Dallas, they beat Kansas City,
Buffalo.
Buffalo. Those are 4 of your last 5 games, and 3 of them, I think, are you were trailing at half,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I mean, he's doing a heck of a job. The whole team's doing a heck of a job, but Jalen's doing a heck of a job. The winning matters in that one, and you beat the guy straight up. Now, Dak had a good game against Philly. He held up his end of the bargain. He made that a competitive game. But Jalen Hurts outplayed him. That's no question in my mind. So this is a ridiculous award. It's only Player of the Month, so let's not get too far flung with it. But when stuff like this happens, you just sit there and go, "Who's making this decision?"
Now, with all that being said, I'm saying there's not a chance in hell Philly wins this game Sunday because of this. Fletcher Cox is out. Zach Cunningham's out. Dallas Goedert's out. A.J. Brown, left practice thigh. Jordan Davis, hamstring. Groin with Lane Johnson. Devontae Smith, knee. DeAndre Swift, ankle. Milton Williams, concussion. These are all fatigue kind of symptoms and injuries of a team. Get this what they did. Kansas City, they played 75 plays, Jace. Then they turned around against Buffalo defensively and played 95 plays. You basically, most teams play 60 plays. You basically played 3 games inside of 7 days and 11 to this day here. You're seeing some of that fatigue because groins, hamstrings, and the 49ers are coming off a bye. So to me, I just think, again, I don't know if they're better, but I think they're just in better shape than what Philly is going into this game.
And the most important, if you're a coach, is not – and fortunately, Sirianni's in a position, right, where he can sit there and go, look, we're just going to rest, okay? This game, as long as we don't screw something up over the last, the next Dallas game, right? As long as we don't screw anything up here in the stretch run, we can afford to lose this game and take a week and get healthy, which is really
now, if
important.
they lose this game, though, Jace, that Dallas game is for first place in the NFC East.
Right. And so you got to feel confident you got to beat Dallas, right? And you got to take care of business. But you have a little bit of breathing room. And I'm not saying I recommend that. And it's tough for the players themselves to adopt that mentality. Okay. Like you can't tell Jason Kelsey, hey, big fella, take it easy this week. He'd probably bite your head off, right? If you told him to back off. But you can sit there and you can say, look, I'm not taking chances with Jordan Davis. I'm not taking chances with this guy. I'm not taking chances with that guy. I got to make sure that I'm healthy for the last month of the season because that's where it really matters. Because look, Philly's the most consistent team in the league. They're the best team in the league right now. That can change in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And I
mean, because Dallas Goedert,
they're not. Yeah, they're not so far out.
I wouldn't play Goddard this week. I'd get him back healthier for Dallas.
All that stuff. That's what your doctors and your medical people tell you. way to say it, but I understand what you're saying. I just look, the most important thing is they're the best team in the league. If they're healthy, okay, make sure that you're healthy for the stretch. Take care of yourself. Make sure that you're playing well in the stretch run. You built up this lead in the NFC. Take advantage of it to as best you can, and let your guys get healthy. Don't push guys out on the field that that you can't afford to lose for the stretch run.
Who do you like Sunday?
I mean, I look. I like San Francisco. I think San Francisco's probably got a little more desperation, and they got something to prove in this game a little bit more than Philly does. And I also think, look, Philly, as tough as they are and as good as they have been over the last, again, that stretch of games that they've won, and 4 of them against really high quality opponents. That's a tough. That takes a lot out of you. Now, I can see a scenario in which the Eagles win this game. Absolutely, 100%. I can see that scenario. But this is one of those games where, like, you're not pulling out every stop to win this game. You're not showing them every single play that you can possibly show them. This is not like the NFC Championship game that you played in last year. So, I think that in that case, I think it's a little harder for the Eagles to get amped. The crowd will be more amped, I think, in some ways than the Eagles team itself to win this game. That's how
Absolutely.
I
You're going to have a ton of courage being passed around Lincoln Financial on Sunday.
Absolutely, and and look, there's all those videos last year of how they treated him before the NFC Championship game. It's going to be the same thing. Like it's an unpleasant atmosphere.
I actually, of course, I would embrace that and endear
I
that
think
because I like that kind of stuff.
I find it entertaining as hell.
Yeah.
But
As
I'm
long as it
also
doesn't go over the line and shit. I like it too, Jace.
yeah. As long as you're not throwing rocks at the bus.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't whip it out and piss on the
No
bus.
batteries.
Don't hurt people. Yell some stuff and like that. But don't act like you're from Buffalo.
Hey, I got to throw something at you here. A couple last questions for you here about Mike McCarthy. Is it me? But I looked it up. Mike McCarthy, having coached Cooper Rush, Brett Favre, Aaron Rodgers, I get it, Dak Prescott, every single guy, career-wise, he's never had an under 500 record with anybody he's ever coached. And wouldn't you say that Dak looks better this year than he's ever looked? Now I get the competition and I understand all that. How no, but
3 years ago, Dak was pretty good. He put up some big numbers.
Early on, he did. I'm with Kellen Moore.
He's done okay. Look, Mike McCarthy is an excellent coach. He's won a Super Bowl. He's done a lot. I think some of his ideas on offense, like the lack of a lot of motion in his offense, makes me what's going on. But I think he understands the layering and design of an offense and how to attack defenses and how to set up a complementary offense to what you're trying to do on defense. And that's why he's been consistently good. Is he great? No. Okay. I don't think he analyzes game situations. You played for one of the great game analysts guys ever, Jimmy Johnson. Like Jimmy understood before the game's going to play out this way. This is likely to happen. This, and this. And if it doesn't, if this, and this happens, and that means that I'm going to have to be prepared to gamble or not gamble. Like I famously remember when Jimmy was on TV, it was before the Patriots Chargers playoff game. Remember the Marlon McCree game when Marlon fumbles the ball, right? And Jimmy says, out loud, and goes, if you're listening, Marty Schottenheimer, this is not the game to gamble. You're the better team. You're at home. You don't have to extend yourself. You're way better.
Is that the 14-2 team?
Yep. Yeah, the 14-2 Chargers team that should have won a Super Bowl.
And then he got fired.
Right. It's like he goes, just play your hand out. Play your cards out, lay them out, you have the better hand. Jimmy said that before the game. So what does Marty do? 4th and 10, goes for it. Does stupid stuff throughout the game that makes it a close game against a Patriots team that really wasn't very good.
Agreed.
Okay, it was okay, but not very good. Opens the door to make it competitive. The game gets competitive. McCree makes a critical mistake and doesn't just fall down. All of a sudden, the Super Bowl is in Indianapolis that year, right? It was wasted, and he was exactly right because Marty was so tense from all those games he had ever lost. The ones to Elway when he was in Kansas City.
Cleveland.
The ones in Cleveland. Like also against Elway. All those games that he had lost, he was so uptight, right? That he felt compelled that he had to do something to extend himself because he hadn't in the other games, lost them. And in this game, he had the better team, and he shouldn't have gambled, and he did.
Don't you think that when you look at McCarthy, like tonight, one thing, I think he looks a little calmer, but to me, I always looked at him, and I'm friends with Mike Martz, and the two things that those guys struggled at was challenges, 2-minute drills, when to call timeouts. I mean, Andy Reid struggled with that when he was in Philly, and he's gotten better. I've told you this before, Jace. I thought that second half in that Super Bowl in Arizona was the best I've ever seen him coach. With timeout, situational play calling, that was some of the best I've ever seen. Because my question always used to be with him, 2 minutes going into the half, and 2 minutes at the end of the game. I thought he kind of struggled with challenges and also proper timeouts.
Well, Andy was really stubborn. Like if you talk to guys like Joe Banner, and look, Andy Reid's a brilliant coach.
Oh, he's totally brilliant.
Absolutely a genius, right? But like everybody's got sort of hung up on their ideas. Like everybody, like I really believe in this. And Danny's always believed in I'm going to throw the ball and I'm going to challenge people. And as time has worn on, it's like, no, we'll run it. I may not have a great running back, but we'll run it. We'll work the clock a little bit more. Like he's matured that way and he's got out of it. And I just remember hearing stories from people in Philly going, we would have spend off seasons talking to him about clock management, and he would just like kind of chuckle and laugh and ignore what we said. And he just didn't, he didn't believe it. Now he kind of believes it.
Yeah, he does. Hey, final question for you. All right.
Let me answer the other question. It was about McCarthy. McCarthy looks more settled because I think that this is the most in control he has been in his time in Dallas, and really the most he's been since the Super Bowl year in Green Bay. Because
I think he's having more fun.
I think he's having more fun, but fun for him is he's the coach, right? Like he's in control of the situation. Well, previous to this, like he wasn't really running the offense, which is what he believed. He wasn't running the offense in Dallas. It was the offensive coordinator who was running it, not doing it the way he necessarily wanted to do it. So he's back in charge. And in Green Bay for so many years, he was at odds with Rodgers. He wasn't really doing it the way he wanted to do it. He was doing it the way Aaron wanted to do it, or they were fighting so much about how it should be done that it wasn't fun for McCarthy. So I think that there's some truth to what you're saying. I still think that there are some things that Mike needs to do to modernize his thinking. I think he's got a little bit of what Dan was when Dan Reeves got to Denver and was still running Tom Landry's playbook. And was running this
formation.
It's nine. Yeah, it's just the truth. You're playing 1970s football.
How was John Elway 2-3 in Super Bowls? Dan Reeves.
Well, just look at the talent. Right,
they didn't have any.
They didn't. They had John, and then they had a bunch of guys who were just guys. And what they were the Denver Broncos for 10 years under Dan Reeves were John Elway and a bunch of guys who were try hard, you know,
Golly gee.
overachiever guys who were a reflection of Dan Reeves. Try
Cowboys, you
hard,
mean
overachieve.
Tom Landry guys, kind of guys.
No, Landry, no. Cowboys had pure talent.
Well, it's because someone else was picking them.
Well, yeah, because they were advanced when it came. They were very advanced when it came to scouting, and they were incredibly advanced at how to invite college coaches to Dallas during the wintertime before
That's
the
all
draft.
Gil.
And well, yeah, because they would ply them with alcohol and golf, and maybe a few women, and they would get all the information they possibly could about every.
I don't know what he's
player
talking about with the $1 million.
I don't.
Go ahead.
I'm just saying. I'm just saying.
Hey, the Cowboys had a
there
table
might
at
have
the
been a
$1 million
few
saloon.
ladies.
I heard this.
I heard that there may have been a few ladies.
Yeah, there was a guy. There was a girl named Chandelier.
I don't know. I don't know, but it was maybe there was some alcohol. I know that happened.
Hey,
there was
you want
golf.
a steak?
Some
you
lady
want to go to the Fountain Blue? You know, you go. That's what we got here. Okay, finally here.
Yeah.
All right. What's this thing with Rodgers? What are we doing here? And by the way, I've never seen an Achilles tear where a guy comes back 11 weeks. I'm not going to call him a liar, but Jason, unless he's Adrian Peterson at 41 or whatever he is, 40. I don't know what's going on in New York because Achilles injuries take 26 months.
Well, is it? I mean, the question was: is it?
Could it be a partial tear?
Could be a partial. Could it be a partial tear? Number one.
Okay.
Or is it a partial tear? We don't know. Nobody's ever really.
Why come back? You're out.
Because you're Aaron Rodgers and you always want to prove the world wrong, and because and this is where I say he's only got a couple years left, right? He's sitting there going, if we got a shot at the playoffs and I can maybe get in, do something with this. And I kind of look and go, whatever. But, Aaron Rodgers loves to prove people wrong.
Is he doing this for his brand, though?
It's all about the brand, but I think ultimately
it's not about football. It's about the brand.
There's some of that, but if the idea is that you're trying to get yourself healthy to play and take advantage of a playoff opportunity, there's nothing wrong with that. Excuse me. The end result is a positive for the Jets. There's nothing wrong with a guy working his butt off to try and get back to play.
Just being a cynic, I guess, too much.
You're right. Like at the end of the day, he's trying really hard. Now, I don't think he faked this injury or lied about it because that means you would have to give up on playing the season. Like that's where it doesn't make any sense. Right. So he wouldn't do that. He legitimately got hurt, couldn't play, but he's working as hard as he possibly can to get back on the field. Good for him. Is it sensible in the grand scheme of what the Jets are? Probably not. But what if some things break right? What if some things go right? And at least he gets prepared. And then you get in the playoffs. And I got Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, I got it.
Against an AFC field, like Baltimore doesn't scare me. Right?
Right? No,
Miami's real good, but they don't scare me.
No, Rodgers versus Tua, Rodgers versus Lamar. I'm taking Rodgers.
Yeah, Rodgers versus Tua. Rodgers versus Mahomes. It's a fair fight. Is Mahomes better right now? Sure, but it's a fair fight.
It is.
And so I'll go for it, man. If it happens, if everything flows right, but you look at the Jets in totality, with that offensive line and everything else that's going wrong, and the fact that Hackett's not very good as a play caller, and you sit and go, this is a mess, man. Like they got a lot of things to fix. But I give Aaron Rodgers a lot of credit for trying to make something out of what appears to be nothing.
Let me sneak one last one on you here. There's rumors going around now that David Tepper would like to make a move to try to get Belichick down there to be the
Sure he
head
would.
coach and director of operations and give him total control of the Carolina Panthers. One, do you think that the Crafts would move off of that and be a way of being able to get out from under that? Or do you think that's just because you agree he's going to be coaching in 24 somewhere on the sidelines?
With Belichick, yeah.
Yeah.
I think he's probably, I think overwhelmingly, I think he's going to be coaching in New England. But
Okay. But do you think
I
there's anything to this
but
Tepper
yeah,
conversation?
look, I don't think Bill Belichick's in his 70s now, right?
70.
I think he likes living where he lives. Like, when you're 70 something years old,
Yeah, no,
like
I'm
the
not
idea,
looking to
like,
pick up my house and move somewhere
yeah, I
new.
don't want to move. I don't want to do this. I got, now new
But
challenge.
he's still chasing Shula.
Right. And I think that part of this is Kraft also wants him to break Shula's record with the Patriots if he can possibly do it. Now he's lagging behind.
He is.
He needed to win 8 or 9 games this year
Yes, he
to
did.
put himself in range, okay, to get there by next year. And that's falling apart.
Isn't that number like 327 or something like that? And he's like
Well,
at
it depends on I
302.
think it's 343
343.
with
Are
if
you
you
counting
include
playoffs or is that just regular
you
season?
count playoffs. I count. You put the
Okay.
playoff wins and you put the regular season wins together, and that's
Okay.
what that's the final number that you get to, right? Like to me, that's how you measure this, right? And so Belichick gets close because he's got a lot more playoff wins than Shula had. So it makes up a lot of the difference. But the bottom line is, I think Kraft, in his heart of hearts, would love to have Belichick break the record with the Patriots. He's got to measure, is this going to work or not, right? And Belichick, if it's not going to work there, he's got to decide, do I want to move? Like, is it worth it for me to move? Like, do I have to take care of my sons and get them jobs and make sure that they're taken care of? Well, that's part of the deal, dude.
I
That's
know, and
part of
he's
the deal.
making 20 million a year right now. They just signed an extension. I mean, you're right, man.
Right,
I think
right,
it's just
yeah,
it sounds good.
yeah, but it sounds really good. But again, at the end of the day, there's some real life things here. You're 70 something years old, and now you got to move and you got to go live in Charlotte, North Carolina, which is not your part of the world. Like, like you've
Yeah,
lived in
he's
the
like an
same place.
Amherst guy even, and
You've
like
lived in the same place for 25 years now.
you're not you're not you're not
You don't want to. You might do it if it's the only option that you have.
it's like moving to Mars.
Yeah, I just think it's really hard to imagine Belichick. I don't think Belichick initiates that. I think that Kraft goes to Belichick and goes, "Look,
Do you want to?
I've made this. Bill, I've made the decision to move on. You have two choices. If you want to continue to coach, I will arrange a trade, and you can go where you want to go, and they can work together. Or you have to retire, but I'm moving on. And so, which way do you want to do it? And I will suck it up, and I will pay off the contract, but I am moving on. If that's what Kraft does, and I think that's the first step, and it's like that's really hard for Kraft to do.
Yep, I agree. That'd be like Jason Cole moving from San Francisco to Gainesville.
What going the other direction was fine. going back to Gainesville.
I got you, Jace.
I love Gainesville, but I gotta go.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate it. Enjoy the
dude.
game tonight, my friend.
Will do. Talk to you later.
You
dude.
got it. That's our friend, Hall of Fame voter Jason Cole. I really appreciate it. By the way, Philly 500. There's not a chance in hell the Eagles win Sunday. I'm going to say it again for you, Philly. There's not a chance in hell, no matter how many pep rallies you and Tone have at the Rocky statue. You can't win. I'll reset, explain. Philly, You can't win. I'm always going to hold it down for the squad. You can't win. Can I use the clip on Monday after yes! I'm going to explain to you, Philly, why you can't win. I got to take a timeout. And you're going to agree with me why you can't win. See, Tone's got heart, guts, desire, will, and I get it. Yeah, I know. But you got to have people on the field. All your guys are walking in all hurt, all banged up. No way do you win. I'll explain. Hit the like button. You'll like what I say, Philly. Keep it here on the National Football Show.
Football and Hooters, the perfect pair.